Good morning, everyone. It's Friday. Take up agenda item G, legislative update. Commissioners, we are reminded to try to project and speak loudly. There's a microphone over there on the table, so keep that in mind, please.
All right. Good morning, Chair Clumps, Vice Chair Smitherman, members of the Commission. For the record, Bryn Hudson, I'm the Legislative Coordinator for the Water Resources Department. I'm here today to give an update on budget and legislative happenings for the 2025 session. I will note that I've got both Raquel Rancier and Lisa Snyder here to help answer all of your hard questions. I'll punt those to, to them. All right, so we are in the thick of the 2025 long legislative session. So as a reminder, there are two different types of sessions in Oregon. Long sessions occur in the odd numbered years, short sessions occur in even numbered years. We are currently in a long session. These typically take place and span over about a 6-month period, starting in January, ending in June. This is typically the setting and the stage for biennial budgets to be adopted and developed and adopted, as well as wide sweeping policy issues and bigger and more complex policy issues. So we are tracking more than 600 different bills at this point in time. These are not all WRD specific bills, thank goodness, but they do span a wide variety of topics. So some of them do have to do directly with the work that we are doing at WRD. Some of the bills impact our sister agencies or work that we carry out in partnership with our sister agencies. There are state enterprise-wide bills that have to do with HR, commissions, commissioners, public meetings, public records, procurement, things like that. So we're really, it really runs the gambit of types of legislation that we are tracking, monitoring and engaging with as needed throughout the session. We are just wrapping up week 8 of 23 weeks. So we are about a third of the way through this session. And we are approaching a pretty big deadline on April 9th. April 9th is the point at which bills that are not in either a Rules Committee or a Joint Ways and Means Committee need to have received a work session, be amended, and passed out of the originating committee. So what we will see between now and April 9th, which I know that seems like it's not very far away, but a lot will happen between now and then. We're going to see a lot more work sessions being scheduled for bills, more public hearings. And then at that point, at the April 9th point, we expect that the number of bills that we're tracking will significantly be reduced because some of those bills may not have made it through what we call that first chamber deadline. So that's just to say it will be a sprint between now and then. And so there is quite a bit happening and quite a bit can change. I will note that attachment 2 in the staff report provides an overview of those bills, a subsection of those bills. The slide does say 100 of those. You will see that there are more than 100. When I initially ran the bill tracker report, I noticed that 100 bills was going to be an arbitrary cutoff, and I didn't want to remove bills that you all may be interested in. So I apologize. You do have a bit of a longer list than you normally would, but we are very engaged this session. There's a lot going on, and we wanted to be sure that you were all apprised to some of those key issues that we were working on. I am going to provide an overview of some of the highest priority bills that we have been engaging with later on in my presentation, so don't worry about that. I will probably give you more information than you want. And I'll also remind folks that the budget is a big point of focus for the agency during the long session. So Director Gall and our deputy directors gave the presentation on our budget to the Joint Ways and Means Natural Resources Subcommittee on February 18th and 19th, and then they collected public comment on the 20th. It was a really great presentation. The subcommittee members appeared to be very engaged, asked a lot of great questions about the work that we do. So for all intents and purposes, I thought it went really well. That meeting is posted online on the Oregon Legislative website. If you missed it and you wanted to go back and look at it, we're also happy to provide that link for you. But it is about a 3-hour-long presentation split over 2 days. And then the summary of the governor's recommended budget is in attachment 1 of the staff report. So we're not going to go through what is in the GRB since we did that at the last meeting, but there is a summary of additions and reductions proposed in the GRB. The GRB is the starting point. for negotiations with the legislature. So that's just a reminder that what's in the GRB is not likely what is going to be the final budget. What our budget will end up looking like will be a culmination of what the subcommittee decides to do, as well as policy bills that have budgetary implications, all wrapped up into one. We will likely not know the full scope of the budget additions and or reductions until May or June. So we still have quite a bit of time before we know how our budget for the 25-27 biennium is going to shape up. All right, so I'm not going to spend too much time here, but I did just want to point a few things out and then remind the commission of some of the ways that the GRB deviates from the current service level budget that we have currently. So under the total funds column or row, you can see that there is about a $30 million increase from our current service level for the GRB. About 20 million of that is lottery bond revenue for water project grants and loans. So our granting programs is a bulk of that growth. You'll also see about $8 million in general fund growth. About 2 million of that comes from the well abandonment repair and replacement fund, about $1 million for that, and then another $1 million for feasibility study grants. There is about a $4.3 million one-time chunk of money general fund for legal expenses. So that's another pretty significant part of the general fund investment to deal with our growing legal expenditure budget. And then I'll also point you to the other funds, including fees row, where you will see the revenue from our fee increase bills that we need to maintain existing services in the well construction, dam safety, and water right transactions programs. And we'll talk a little bit more about those fee increase bills as well, but that's just kind of what you will see at a high level. I will also note there's about $3.5 million in general fund that is not part of our current service level, that is rollover from previous biennia for specific direct appropriation water projects that have not fully expended the funds that they have received from the legislature. And so you'll see that rolled over in the form of resources for, I believe it's the city of the Rogue River Irrigation District, City of Sotaville, things like that. Those are direct appropriations for specific projects. All right, so now we're getting into legislation. So as a reminder, we have 4 bills this session that the department is sponsoring and running. Here is the list of them. So what I'm just going to do is provide a high-level overview of where they are at. There is a summary of each of those bills in attachment 1. So I'll start from the bottom, I guess. House Bill 2013, which is the Harney Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program technical fix. That legislation has actually passed out of its originating committee and is in the Joint Ways and Means Committee. So that one will likely stay in that committee for several months while those subcommittees are working on budgets and other type of policy issues that have fiscal impacts. I will note that that bill did receive some amendments before passing out of the committee. How the committee chose to amend that bill is that they actually expanded the department's authority to authorize CREP anywhere in Oregon that we are not issuing groundwater rights. So the original underlying appropriation for Harney and the Harney CREP still is retained and dedicated specifically for Harney. However, now the department actually has the authority to authorize CREP programs anywhere else in the state. That is to say that there are still other requirements that those communities would need to meet on the federal side in terms of studies and getting qualified for the program. But the department does have the authority to authorize those programs should those communities make it through those requirements. So we would not be a barrier in terms of our authority for authorizing those types of programs. House Bill 2801, which is the Klamath leases and temporary transfers sunset date. This allows for temporary transfers and leases for determined claims in the Klamath. That bill has had a public hearing and we are currently awaiting scheduling of a work session. So we're hopeful that we will see one of those crop up at a near point in time between now and April 9th. And then our 2 fee bills, 2803 and 2808, which is the water right transaction and dam safety fees, and then the well construction fees. Those have not yet received a public hearing, but we anticipate that those will be scheduled closer towards the end of the month. So if you were tracking any bills, be on the lookout for those to occur more towards the end of the month. So in addition to our WRD bills, there is also a huge interest in water similar to last session. And this is largely being spearheaded by the Water Caucus. So this slide lays out the general categories that the Water Caucus chairs have laid out and organized their policy and investment agenda around. I will note that these are items that span multiple natural resource agencies. These are not just WRD specific. There are a litany of other agencies included in these priorities. But I think the whole point here is there is just quite a bit of focus on water, which is exciting always. And so I'll just give you kind of a high level overview of some of the general areas that we are working on, because there's a lot of bills that we're highlighting. So I'll just kind of highlight some general areas, and then we can open the floor for questions on if there are any specific questions on particular bills or updates. So one of the first kind of areas that we're seeing emerging and really working on are legislation that are targeting several WRD processes and programs with the purpose of improving or streamlining those processes and programs. So there are several bills that actually had a public hearing on Wednesday on improving and streamlining both the water right transaction process as well as the contested case process. There are also, there's a bill looking at the WRD funding programs, specifically feasibility studies and water project grants and loans, aimed at improving those programs, expanding eligibility, opening things up a bit more for different types of projects, and working to kind of streamline those two funding opportunities together so they work a little bit better together. There's also a pair of bills really focused on improved interagency coordination and program improvement, specifically around reuse and aquifer recharge, and then aquifer recharge and artificial storage and recovery. Those are two bills that they essentially kind of mirror each other, one with DEQ being lead for water reuse, and then the other with WRD being lead for ASR and AR. And those two bills kind of mirror each other in that the direction is really for the agencies to work more closely, do some policy identification and policy work and technical work to remove barriers to entry of that program, improve the programs, and expand them as well. Transfers, water right transfers are also a big area of focus. There are several bills, both on the House side and the Senate side, that look at the transfer process, and they really run the gambit in terms of what each of them do. We see some that are adding considerations for diminishment of stream flow, aquatic habitat, water quality, and then on the flip side, counter proposals that look more at maintaining the status quo and adding some other things. So we are closely involved in those conversations and watching to see what happens there. And then there's a groundwater quality management bill that seeks to improve groundwater management in a more proactive way between agencies, that we are also involved in those conversations closely. Exempt wells are, both from the quantity and quality side, are emerging as a hot topic. There are a few bills looking at exempt use statutes, so our exempt use statutes, and evaluating options for some types of small scale irrigation allowances that are not associated with the non-commercial or lawn or garden exemption. And also there are several pieces of legislation that are looking at facilitating water quality testing on domestic wells. DEQ and OHA are largely leading those conversations, but we are monitoring those and engaging as appropriate in those discussions. There is also a suite of Harney-specific bills that are cropping up as a result of our conversations around the Division 512 Harney Critical Groundwater Area rulemaking, including legislation around voluntary agreements, groundwater management more broadly in that Harney area, as well as some study opportunities to evaluate options for solar siting in critical groundwater areas. So we are engaged in all those conversations as well, but there's a lot of Harney-specific legislation popping up. Water data is another area of focus that you all are not unfamiliar with. That's a kind of reoccurring topic every session. There are a few bills that deal with different parts of water data, either collection or analysis. or data infrastructure. So there is a bill aimed at streamlining WRD's measurement and reporting authorities. There's other legislation that seeks to restore cuts to the governor's recommended budget made for data collection. So there's another piece of legislation that looks to restore those cuts, as well as discussions around the Oregon Water Data Portal and the future of that and what funding and next steps look like to keep that effort moving forward. So lots going on the data front as well. And then the last item I will highlight before I kick it out to you all, if you have any questions, is kind of a bundle of local planning and local solutions bills that we're also tracking. There are two specific bills that we're looking at that are really related to the department's place-based planning program, resources, some policy directives, and one specific bill looking at the local efforts that are going on in the Chewaucan Basin. That is a planning effort that is separate from our state-supported program, but we are engaged in that planning effort. So we are tracking that bill and providing technical assistance as needed on that legislation. And then there are two other bills focused on local water flexibility, targeting the Deschutes Basin and the Walla Walla Basin. So for the Deschutes, this legislation is specifically looking at water banking as a solution for flexible water movement and management. And then the pilot, and that's a pilot program, and then there's another pilot program in the Walla Walla that is being considered, looking at a similar kind of program, not necessarily as involved as a water bank, but looking at some more flexible water use solutions while also trying to get more water protected in stream. So kind of looking at some innovative ways at ways to maintain flexibility, and then we're engaged on the policy front to ensure that we're not having any unintended consequences as a result of this flexibility. So we are heavily involved in those conversations, and there's still a lot more that can happen this session. So this list is by no means intended to be all-encompassing of everything that we're doing, but I hope it gives a good picture of some of the big topics that we're working on and engaging in. And I will just say before I do kick it out, this has been, it's only been 8 weeks, but this session has been very, very busy, and it has really been an all hands on deck effort from everyone in the agency. And Raquel and I and Director Gall are forever grateful for all of the staff that have helped out on this. It's really required everyone this go around. So I just wanted to, while we have the floor, send a big thank you out to everyone in the agency who's been helpful and taken on extra work in addition to the work that they're already doing for the agency to help out the session. So with that, I will kick it over to you all if you have any specific questions or updates or any information that we can provide further. Thank you.
Questions, comments?
I have one.
Commissioner Lee?
Thank you. There are two bills, Senate Bill 427 and 1153, that bring public interest review into transfers. And the concern that I have, and I don't know if it's valid, I'd like to hear from you guys, is that it says that if you want to transfer a portion of the water right, I believe it means that you have to look at the old water right under the new.
Raquel, do you want to take the transfer one? Did you hear that question?
Chair Crumbs, members of the committee, I actually did not hear the question very well at the end there. So if someone in the room can repeat that, that would be helpful, I think, for us that's online. And for the record, while I am remembering it, Raquel Rancière, Deputy Director.
Brent, can you
Yeah.
restate?
Yeah, Raquel, the question was for the two transfers bills, 427 and 1153. What are the ramifications of the transfer provisions within that bill in terms of looking at the entire water right and the impact of transferring the entire water right under those provisions that require us to look at things like aquatic habitat and diminishment of stream flow?
Yeah, I think there's still more work to understand the bill that just recently came out, the, what is it, 1153 or 4. However, I think what is, if you look at these bills, it's not, I think it is intended to be the change that is a result of the transfer itself. So when you're looking at Senate Bill 427, and they have the diminishment of flow standard, it's the diminishment of flow as a result of the transfer. It's not the diminishment of flow as a result of the use of water, period. So, for example, if you propose a transfer that doesn't change the amount of flow in the river, from what it was prior to the transfer, then that would still result in approval under that standard. If you were, though, to, for example, the one area of the bill that will have a change, for sure, is upstream transfers of the point of diversion. And that is because you are essentially between the point of diversion, the historic or original point of diversion, up to the new point of diversion. That stream reach didn't used to have water taken out of it, and now it suddenly does. So that is an example where you would have actual diminishment of flow as a result of the transfer. Other instances where you might see a change as a result of that would be, for example, if there is a reduction in return flows, but there's not an existing water right that relies on those return flows. The key distinction that I'm making there is that if there was an existing water right that relied on those return flows, we would find injury, and there would already be a concern over that transfer. So it's really in these instances where you see today injury and enlargement cover a lot of that issue around diminishment of flow, for example, because it's really about how is the transfer impacting other water rights today, and also you're not allowed to use more water than you're entitled to under your right. And so those two provisions already cover a lot of the instances where you would find diminishment of flow. And really the two that I just identified are the primary ones where you would see a difference. I might be misremembering. There might be one other instance that we've identified. Oh, if you're talking about groundwater, it would be around if the transfer is actually making a change that that results in a greater impact to the stream. So instead of looking, at for surface water, what I just articulated, this is about really that impact to the stream. Is it going to increase that impact to the stream? So for example, if you're moving your point of diversion closer to a stream, that might be an example of where that would increase your impact to the stream. So I don't know if that is helpful. That gives some examples. I think what you'll see is likely there's similarities between both bills in regards to when those would occur. I'm not ODFW though, so I can't, with certainty speak to how they would. The other bill looks at a no net loss of habitat, and then it has a water quality provision in it as well. And then it has a tribal component to it as well. And so I would anticipate, we would need at this point in time, as that bill is currently written, we'd need the expertise of ODFW and DEQ. The agencies are talking about trying to understand how, if there's ways where that wouldn't be the case, where OWRD would have some just reference data today, but I don't have that answer for folks today. So we'll stay tuned on that one.
Thank you, Raquel.
I don't have any questions. I just want to commend you all for being able to follow such a huge list.
It takes all of us.
Mr. Smitherman?
Oh, sorry about that. I was having trouble with that audio button. Good morning. Thank you so much for the presentation. And my goodness, there is quite a lot going on this session. I just have a question, and maybe just more of a clarifying question about House Bill 2803 about the safety fees. And question was brought up about why we're not able to use general funds potentially to offset some of those increases in fees. And I was just curious if you could help me understand that a little bit better.
Chair Clem's Vice Chair Smitherman, that's a great question. So, typically, specifically for the water right transactions, fee increase, I think, is that which one you're talking about, or are you looking more at the dam safety one? Water rights? So there is a general understanding and an agreement that was struck back in 2009 between, negotiating parties that the program expenses for the water right transaction program would generally be split 50-50 fees and general fund. We have since moved away from that in just generally how the budget shakes out. When revenues go down, we do often supplement with general fund. The key thing to remember there, though, is general fund that is not new general fund comes at the expense of other programs. So that is vacancy savings. If a position in groundwater comes open and we need revenue, we may leave that position open and use those general funds, vacancy savings, to pad the fee revenue shortfall. So, and we have done that. And historically, we're actually looking more at about a 55-45 general fund fee split. So, historically, we actually have used general fund to pad that. We have also, when Director Gall came on board as our full-time director or permanent director, one of the first things he did was actually moved to NRS 2 general fund supported assistant water master positions that were unfilled from field over to both transfer section and the water rights section to add some caseworker capacity from the general fund side. So, that puts us even more general fund heavy in that program. So we have been using general fund to offset that fee increase. However, from the perspective of this 135% fee increase, if we were to offset with existing general fund, that would mean taking from another service within the agency. So that's just kind of the way the budget works. The bottle can't get bigger per se. So that's essentially what we've tried to do. And we have dipped into general fund where it is appropriate. And I know that there are conversations happening at the legislature right now to talk about if there is extra general fund, where does that go? But
Right.
we are in a long list of other agencies and programs that are competing for that general fund. So I hope that
Understood.
answers your question.
Thank you
Chair
for that.
Commissioner Smitherman, if I might add one more thing to that, when we say we're taking existing general fund, what that means is typically it means we're leaving positions open, right, in other program areas to do that. It is generally vacancy savings. The budget is approved by the legislature, right? And in terms of the actual budget, that is how the budget is structured, is that part of it's from fees, part of it's from general fund. And so if we're looking at what are permanent solutions, those permanent solutions have to be identified by the legislature or approved by the legislature. Our current ability is only through, because of what the legislatively approved budget is that a portion of those would be through fees, a portion is through general fund. We don't get more general funds, without it being in our approved budget. And so the result of that is when our fees revenues are insufficient, that's when we're trying to cover with some vacancy savings with general funds, but there are trade-offs, certainly.
Of course. Thank you very much for that explanation. That helps me a lot. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Mine, I'm thumbing through these and going, oh my God, how do you track it? And I noticed an awful lot of these have, on the, get the bill number and they're relating to, and where a good number of them say, on declaring an emergency.
Yeah.
Can you
Yeah.
clarify that just a little bit? more?
Absolutely.
We're kind of emergency are we talking about?
Yeah. So, Chair Clements, Vice Chair Smitherman, so, Commissioner Kihara, so the declaring of an emergency is, a component of the bill infrastructure that identifies when a bill will go into effect. So declaring of an emergency basically means as soon as the bill, because this bill is so needed, it goes into effect upon passage. So you'll see that like our fee bills, we want those fee increases to be effective at the start of the biennium, not when the governor signs it or not at the beginning of 2026. We want them to be effective right at the beginning of the new biennium. So our bills will have an emergency clause to ensure that once it's passed, it can go into effect. Or, you know, similarly, if there is a bill that authorizes us to hire positions for work, if it has an emergency clause, that means we can get going as soon as it passes the legislature, we can start trying to hire because we're going to get those funds at the new biennium. So that it's less of some things are a reaction to a specific emergency, but largely the emergency clause really defines when a bill becomes effective.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't panic.
There's something going on that I don't know about.
I see Raquel has her hand up, so she may have something to add as well.
Yeah, Chair Clements, Commissioner, I think just for general knowledge, the default, so if you don't see an emergency clause on the bill, the default then is generally the first of the year following the session. So that is, hence the emergency is really about urgency in terms of implementation, right? So I would just clarifying one other point is that the governor does have to sign a bill, even if it has an emergency clause. It doesn't take away the ability of the governor to not sign or to veto a bill.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Boyd, I had suggested to Director Gall in the past that we get more time on this topic because generally a lot of discussion.
There's a lot going on.
Too much to absorb.
Yeah.
Well, if there are no other questions or comments, and thank you, Brandon, thank you all the staff. As Brent pointed out, there's a tremendous amount of effort going into this. Everybody assisting. Certainly appreciate it.
Thank you.
So we're now on agenda item J, Commissioner comments. I think I'll start with, on my left, Commissioner Newman.
I'm still happy to be here.
I'm glad.
And I'm excited about some of the programs that we've looked at this meeting as well as last meeting. I'm really pleased to see the direction that the IWRS is going. I find this legislative stuff fascinating, but definitely overwhelming. And it's a kind of a be careful what you wish for, you know, that for a number of years, some of us lamented the lack of interest and leadership in the legislature on water issues. And now there's an excess of it. So it's a lot to follow and a lot of activity that I think will benefit the department over time. And I have to say that both meetings I've been at so far, I've been really impressed with staff and their presentations and their grasp of the issues and then also the logistical staff. So I appreciate you all. That's it. I haven't done anything that, you know, merits like show and tell.
Thank you, Commissioner Lee.
And I'm in a different place on the legislature. I'm the president of the Conservation District Association, and we're watching all the water and land use bills. And I want to say that Director Ball did a great job in the budget along with Raquel and other staff. And I guess it's division, whatever you call it, 090 reductions in the Water Resources Department budget. There are a lot of associations that are pushing for those to be restored, so I feel optimistic that we can get some of that back. Really appreciate the Water Caucus taking on a number of bills, and I hope that some of you will join on Water Day at the Capitol on March 20th. The Water Caucus is putting on an event all day at the Heritage Center. That's what they used to call the old mill, close to the Capitol. If you go online to the Oregon Legislature and look at Water Day, you'll see all the information there. For my own region of the state, water outlook looks good. We actually had some snow again around Sandy yesterday, so still building. And that's really good because I think water and climate are so closely associated that we need all the help we can get on that. That's all I have.
Well, I am very grateful to, the weather gods that have been showing the atmospheric reverse through Oregon instead of either north or south of us. So it's very nice to see in green. I'm getting a little tired of gray, but I'm very happy that the wet is here. It's looking, hopefully that will give the forest a chance to recover some and not get, turn into smoke. Fingers crossed. Worried about the state of affairs with, between our federal partners. I know the Water Resources Department does not have a lot of direct ties, but Reclamation, Forest Service, Fish and Wildlife have always been kind of working together with Water Resources Department and have the staff disappear, not be hired, can really put a kink in all the work that we do in our partnerships and the people of Oregon that, we all serve. Just concerned. And I think that's really all I have.
Yeah, I just want to say how appreciative of the department that I am for all of the efforts. These meetings take a lot, especially right now with so much going on in the legislature. Fairly excited of some of the stuff that's in the works, hopefully come to fruition on the Division 512 stuff and all the work that the people and the department have been doing there, moving forward on that. Excited to see where that goes, and thankful for the precipitation we're getting for the moment. Looks like it's going to continue throughout the state.
Yeah. Thanks. Commissioner Mall?
Morning, everyone. Nothing more than just to echo the sentiments that the staff, particularly during the legislative season, do an amazing job managing so many projects. It's like a bunch of different foreign languages. And when you go to Salem and go to the legislature and visit and shifting from one issue to the next with great aplomb. So similar to Commissioner Kihara's thoughts, the thought of losing that capacity so quickly at the federal level is just stunning. And I am thankful that the people of Oregon are supportive of the department. And I think, again, it just behooves us to continue to earn their trust. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Smitherman?
Agreed. Everyone said a lot of really good things. I fully agree with other commissioners and their sentiments. there's been a lot of work. I know that's gone on in this legislative session and a lot more to come. And I'm really grateful to all of you for the work that you do in that area. And then how you help us try to understand it, because like everyone was saying, it is like a foreign language at times, because it's not, we don't do it all the time. And so it's nice to be able to ask the questions and have you break it down for us. I really do appreciate that. Also, I think the Water Day sounds really exciting. I don't think that I can make it next week, but I hope that somebody can, and look forward to hearing some feedback about that. Again, grateful for staff and not just the legislative work, but in all the work that you've been doing. I mean, so many great things have been worked on by the department, and I'm happy to be a part of the commission and be able to support that work. I'm sorry that I'm not there in person this time. I missed all of you. I miss seeing everybody in person, and thank you to staff for navigating all of our IT challenges. And, that's just the day we live in. And I appreciate their patience, and especially after, yesterday's little fiasco, but we figured it out, and there was a thunderstorm. I mean, yesterday was just full of all kinds of things. And I'm really sad that I missed that thunderstorm. I really actually would have liked to be there for that. But to echo other sentiments of, we have had a good water year so far in most areas. And so we can be grateful for that going forward. So just want to say again, thank you to everybody, and look forward to seeing you all in June.
Thank you. So I wanted to also echo the comment about, the potential losses of staffing and resources at the Bureau of Reclamation. There's a really tight link between the state, issuing water rights, enforcing those, and the basins I work in, the Bureau of Reclamation managing the infrastructure to deliver that water. Those have to work together. And some of the issues we've had recently, I've appreciated the department's support in the North Central region, potential loss of Bureau staffing, and but it also makes me think that the loss of those resources means some contingency plans are necessary. In the Umatilla Basin, for example, there could have been or could be an example where loss of Bureau staffing, the basin would operate differently than it has in the last 24 years without the Bureau able to deliver water on pump station. It would have been a massive change in workload for department staff in the basin, I think. So those are important things to think about. Like, how would we respond to that? Try to protect water rights and in-stream flows in that condition. So it's, I think, worth thinking about. I really appreciate as Commissioner Newman did, the Integrated Water Resources Strategy 2. I think it does a good job of kind of being anchored in the past pillars while reorganizing some other information very well and being very clear. So thank you for that. I know it's a lot of work, a lot of commenters. Also looking forward to the strategic plan update. I think that's very important, particularly the next 5 years with this, again, potential implications of changes at the federal level, working relationships and collaboration, state and federal agency relationships. So I think that plan is perhaps more important than the Water Day at Oregon Legislature sounds great. I kind of doubt I can make it, but looking forward to the results of that as well. So, and I think we have no public comment, correct? So it's 8:46 and we are adjourned. No?
Minutes. Oh, so sorry. Yes, you did.
Okay, so we're adjourned. Thank you.
Wow, before 9 o'clock.
Joe, Julie, thank you.
Thank you. Everyone, safe drives home.